Welcome to The Longer Game, the only show that's dedicated to the future of retail. We bring on real-life people in the retail industry. We talk about their experiences, we share their stories, we apply it to what's currently going on in the market, and we look towards the future of retail. You could say it's retail reimagined. My name is Michael Marr. I run a customized, done-for-you service agency called Cartology that helps brands win on Amazon. Now, while my expertise stems in the Amazon field, we bring on a wide array of guests because retail is expansive. You've got e-commerce. Yes, you've got marketplaces like Amazon. You've also got brick and mortar that is evolving. You've got logistics. You've got technology, finance. There are so many aspects to retail, and it's complicated. So we're here to bring you the entire story. Do you think that you have an interesting story and you'd like to tell it on the podcast? Then go to thelongergame.com and fill out a form to be a guest on the show today. You can catch The Longer Game on any social channels: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and our website, thelongergame.com. We've got all awesome guests on this show, so that I will promise. Are you ready to hear more about the future of retail? Let's get down to business. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Longer Game. This is the show where we talk about all things retail, e-commerce, Amazon. We could talk about Walmart. We could talk about eBay. We could talk about anything that relates back to retail. And today on the show, I have Ben Leonard, who was voted 2023 Most Handsome Man in E-commerce. And runs Ecom Brokers, and the business is all about helping e-commerce business owners get clear, take control, and grow, and maybe be a little bit more sexy. Welcome, Ben. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what that actually means?
Good to be here. Thanks for having me. So my whole thing is helping e-commerce business owners treat their businesses like a real brand. Whether that's helping somebody who's just starting, or with my Ecom Brokers hat on, helping people plan their exit. I think for too long, especially perhaps, in the early days, going back, maybe 2015, 16, 17, it was so easy to just sell stuff on the internet. People were able to generate 6, 7, perhaps even 8-figure businesses without really a business that was represented by a true brand identity. I think times have changed. That's now a prerequisite. We have to do that. And I'm all about helping people understand how they do that. Because if we don't do that, I don't think we connect with our customers. And when it comes to trying to sell our business, I don't think we have a very sellable proposition.
So you said something that's interesting, which is, I think that's a prerequisite, because otherwise it becomes hard to connect and it becomes hard to sell the business if that's what you want to do. I would not argue, but I would just say, I don't think it is a ultimate prerequisite. Just like you have free will, basically you can choose to do whatever you want. I think there's like sometimes clear choices, like, do I kill this person or not? Yeah, the answer's pretty clear. Don't do it. That's our official stance on murder, by the way. Don't do it here at The Longer Game. But I think you can sell just products. But to your point, the likelihood of actually bringing a customer back and not having everyone be new to brand, that could be a thing you want to do, is have more new to brand people or consumers. And also, if you want to have more IP than just capital, like you want to have something that gets people to say, oh yes, I recognize and know this brand, and there's an emotional attachment, there has to be some kind of backing behind that.
Yeah, you're right. Perhaps prerequisite was too strong of a word there. You absolutely can just sell stuff.
Right.
I would argue that in the long run, it makes your life harder.
It's not a great idea because there's quick turnover of products.
Oh, yeah.
Like, okay, this product's dead. What do I come up with next? There's no continuity from a brand standpoint.
Yeah, and have you ever heard of a Famster?
A Famster?
A Famster. It's a cross between a fish and a hamster.
No.
And
no, I haven't. Is that a real thing, or?
I made it up, but it's a terrible affliction that a lot of people are suffering from. It's this. They are simultaneously stuck in the Amazon goldfish bowl, if that's where they're selling, or whatever goldfish bowl they're in, and they're stuck on a hamster wheel. Because what's happening is this.
Oh, that sounds awful.
It's terrible. Yeah.
I was thinking maybe it was like how the guy that founded Megadeth wanted to be like Metallica, but he was not because he got kicked out, right?
Right.
But it's not. It's a
But
little different. It's like
it's a
being
bit
stuck
different.
in
We
two
can talk
very
about that
awful
later.
positions.
Yeah. But um folks, we were talking about Metallica off air. Um the Famster thing is this. So you're stuck on this hamster wheel. You work hard to get a sale, and then you work hard to get another sale and another sale and another sale. All the time, you're never building a relationship with your customer or giving them a quality experience or helping them come to know, like, and trust your brand. So the next time they need to solve a problem with a widget, they don't come back to you. So that's part one, you're stuck on a hamster wheel. And part two is you're stuck in this goldfish bowl of only being in that one environment. Let's say it's Amazon. And you're not actually treating your brand like a real brand and connecting with your audience outside of Amazon, whether that's on email lists, on YouTube, with a podcast, on all the different social media channels we have available to us. And when we do that, we're losing out to all the people that aren't Famsters, who have built these relationships, who have got customers consuming their content, building a relationship with them, coming to know, like, and trust them, always having them top of mind so that when they do need to solve a problem, they'll go back to the competitors who aren't stuck on this hamster wheel in a goldfish bowl. And if you're in that situation, what I'm trying to do is encourage people to change their approach and treat their business more like a real brand. And I think the easiest way to do that is to ask yourself, well, how do my favorite brands behave? How do they look and feel and behave? And start treating your business like that. And I think when we do that, we treat our business with more respect. We're treating it as more than just selling stuff or like a side hustle, and we're treating it like a big boy grown up consumer goods business.
So many people talk about having a side hustle. I don't know if it's happening as much anymore. I don't know how tuned in I am to that, but it seemed like for a while everyone was like, "Oh, this is my side hustle. I got a side hustle." And eventually, if you want that side hustle to be your main hustle, there's a leap of faith that has to happen. But
Yeah.
if you don't have grounding or something to really turn it more into reality, it's just that thing, then yeah, probably never becomes fully what it should be. Like, let me put it this way. There's a lot of musicians or actors that have made it famous, and a lot of them, not that I'm saying, that's the pinnacle. We talked about, actors and stuff being narcissists or people in the public eye. So there's a level of that, but I don't think most people had a stable job while also acting and also or trying to be a full-time musician. Like, there are a lot of people whose story is, I left the comfort of what I was doing to go do it and pursue it full time and like fully immerse myself. And I think if you don't have a brand or identity that has something to cling on to, it definitely becomes just being inside of a hamster wheel, and there's nothing to really hold on to other than just the next rung to keep spinning. Basically, is what you're saying.
Yes. And what I'm also saying is, you mentioned the side hustle thing there.
Don't get me wrong, like, go for a side hustle because a
Oh,
lot of things
yeah.
start out that way.
Like, exactly. So as entrepreneurs, we take risks, but I think it's important that we take calculated risks. And I wouldn't want to encourage anybody to just quit their job straight off the bat when it simply doesn't make sense for them to do that. We need to start our businesses on the side, but we don't want to treat them like a side hustle, because when we
Right.
do that, that is a limiting mindset that immediately puts a ceiling on what you can achieve. What we want to say is, this is my dream, this is my vision. I have to start it on the side right now because clearly otherwise I'm not going to be able to support myself and put a roof over my head. But eventually this will be my full-time gig, and I will grow this into something that can not just replace but potentially surpass my income, and who knows, be an enormous business that I can one day sell for life-changing money.
I've never started a business without having a full-time job, if that helps paint the picture. Like, when I first started selling, when I was started my e-commerce business back in 2010, I was working a full-time job, did that for about a year. And then after that, I said, okay, like, I'm going to go and, really pursue this full time. It became a lot. I was like, okay, this seems like it's doable. Like, I had proof of concept. I did that for 6 years. Then my e-commerce business basically crashed. That's like the shorter way of saying it. And as I was unraveling that, I was like, okay, I have a skill set. I understand e-commerce. I understand Amazon was a big part of or sales, and I just developed skills over time, learning as they go, reading articles, seeing other people who were doing stuff. Like I had Chad Rubin on my podcast a couple episodes ago, and he was someone who started in 2006, so even before me, and was talking publicly about stuff, which is cool to see. Oh, he's dealing with account suspensions. He's dealing with all this stuff too. How did he handle that? What did he do? What did he say? So it was just by absorbing that stuff. But once I did that for 6 years and then it crashed, I had to get another job. I figured out, what am I going to do with this skill set as I unwind this e-commerce business, and worked a full-time job for like 11 months while I was building the agency side of things, and then went and did that full time. So there was definitely time to prove concept, but then at some point it was like, okay, if this is really going to get to what I want it to be, I'm going to have to step out. Like I never thought of it like a side hustle. It was always like, this is what I want to do. This full-time job I'm working is kind of like my side hustle in a way. This is what's going to get me at least through until I can start doing this full time.
Yeah, I feel sorry for anyone who hasn't got to a point yet that they can quit their job, who listens to all of the podcasts and reads the blogs and is consuming content on social, and they're seeing all these people putting out these kind of these snapshots or cross sections of what their business and career is like, who are not keeping it real and not talking about all this real stuff that's actually going on. And it can feel like they have to have you have to have you have to have everything arranged and organized. You have to have everything, you have to have it together immediately from the get-go. And what I try to say to people is, yeah, like, you are going to need a slick, well-oiled business machine so that you can scale it. You're going to need standard operating procedures. You're going to need operations manuals. You're going to need an org chart. You're going to need a team. You're going to need automations, yada, yada, yada. But you kind of don't need to worry about that straight off the bat, because straight off the bat, if we're being realistic, as you're getting your business, to orbit, so to speak, you're going to be building the plane while you fly it. It's going to be chaotic. You're going to be flying by the seat of your pants. And that's completely normal and fine, and absolutely what entrepreneurship is about. But then once things are kind of ticking over nicely and you've got a bit of breathing space, perhaps you're about to go full time now, that's when you can kind of take a step back and say, right, we're here now. It works. The wheels aren't about to fall off if I don't keep running at 1,000,000 miles an hour. What do I need to do to turn this into that slick machine that scales, and into something where I have the confidence I can step away from my full-time job to focus on this going forward?
My good friend Ronell Richards calls what you talked about, that cross section that's not keeping it real, he calls that entrepreneur porn, which is basically the like unrealistic expectations of, what entrepreneurship is like. And just like marriage or a real relationship is, and probably honestly like 99.9% of relationships are not like pornography, but just like a real marriage or relationship is nothing like that. And it's not even, honestly, way more satisfying on that end, the marriage side, not the pornography side. And there's a lot of like, a lot of ways that I could go in that, but even like scientifically doesn't make your life better. It honestly makes your life worse. I think there's other components as well. But on the entrepreneur side, there's nobody I know that just had straight rocket growth, up and to the left, and it was easy, and they just were like profitable right away. Like there's so many misnomers in that step up. And the reality is most companies aren't going to be the billionaires that people idolize, the like Elon Musks, the, what's that guy's name that started Meta? Why am I blanking on his name?
Oh, Zuckerberg.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg. That was not a flex. Like, I don't know what that guy's name is. I literally blanked. It's not the Mark Zuckerbergs. It's not the, the people on Shark Tank. That is like less than 1%, like 0.1% of businesses might get there. And as those businesses are growing, most of them are not profitable, if at all. They're looking for growth and, again, proof of concept. And maybe they get to a place of profitability. That's why they need investors. because
Yeah,
they're not bringing in, like, there's a reason why
yeah,
investors are thinking they're not bringing in the revenue to get to that next point. You can make $2 million in revenue, and you need investors to get you to the next level because, hey, we're getting to retail and we need to fill this PO, but we need $3 million to
yeah.
fill the PO so that we can get to become a $15 million company. So, and there's no shade
No.
on that, but it's just not the reality. It's not the reality is most people I know have worked another job or have had to grind it out, and it's a lot of long nights, long early mornings, not very glorious. It's very inglorious, and there's just a lot of hard work and effort that goes into it, and it's not this, whoa, look at
Yeah,
my cool car and all my cash.
and I think that phrase entrepreneurial porn is it hits the nail on the head. And I think that there are some people who are perhaps guilty of putting that out into the world, but they're not, they're still real in the sense that they have built great businesses. But then on the other side of it, you've got these people who are um, going the other extreme, and they're what I would call, the fake gurus, and it's toxic. I was teaching on a trip, an e-commerce trip through Vietnam last year. I'm doing it again this April. Killing two birds with one stone. Teaching on this trip to students who are visiting factories and trade shows and stuff in Vietnam, and meeting one of my manufacturers as well. And there was this really lovely lady on this trip who had lost $100,000 giving money essentially to these two e-commerce gurus, one of whom is very well known and probably going to jail. And you just think,
That doesn't sound fun.
no, not at all. I don't know how these people sleep at night. But
Maybe they don't, Ben. Maybe they don't.
maybe they don't. Maybe they don't.
Maybe we
But
just assume they are because that's what the picture they're putting out on social media.
it's just so pervasive, though. There's so much of it.
Yeah.
Um, you know, they're not all putting schemes together like this, but you just have to turn on Instagram or YouTube and you see people saying, showing screen grabs of them, you know, looking at Amazon and using Helium 10 and saying, you should launch this product. It's doing this much money and you can make this much money. And it's just absolute nonsense. And I
If
don't
I
know
want to
how
launch
many
a
people.
business, I always do 30 seconds of research by watching a video and then I invest thousands. That's my
Sol-
business. That's my business plan.
Solid advice there. Love it.
There was actually a guy who I totally get it. And some of those gurus I've made my peace with. But on the agency side, there's a lot of agencies that collect money and don't do work. Like that's the easiest way to put it. And almost every time I have a sales conversation with someone who might need help from my agency, they've been burned. It is just
Yeah. I,
nonstop. And I've said the same thing. I don't know how these people sleep at night. Like I don't know how they do that. And it's like growth for the sake of growth. It's not really growth that's helping anyone. It's just creation of something that I don't know where it's going, but it's not really helping many people.
yeah, I think I can't think of a better. It's not fair to say those who can't do teach. I don't think that that's a fair.
I mean, maybe sometimes, but it's not like the standard, I don't think.
Yeah, no, but I can't think of a better way to put it right now. But there are so many of these agencies out there who they're just like, right, shovels to the gold rush. And it's really, really hard if you're overwhelmed, you are desperately trying to find a solution, you want to find something cost effective. It's really tempting to go for these slightly cheaper agencies,
Mm-hmm.
but who actually it's just a terrible experience. They simply don't have the capability, and frankly, will, like you say, they'll bill and not do the work. A phrase that I've come to use quite a lot in my career is this: it's cheap is expensive, and expensive is cheap. In other
Yeah,
words,
I
it
love it.
pays to invest in getting things right the first time. I first learned that lesson actually when I had a lucky escape from an intellectual property point of view. So back in 2016, I started my first business. In fact, this is a fun case study. People can look this up. So I'm totally open about my first brand, and I'll actually be telling people openly about my current brand soon as well. I just need them to be a little bit more mature so that they have a slightly wider moat around them before I do. But my first brand that I built and then sold was a fitness brand called Beast Gear. And if you go to the UK Intellectual Property Office website, which is ipo.gov.uk, and you search for the Beast Gear trademarks, you'll find, before you click into them, they look exactly the same from 2016 and 2017. But when you click into them, you'll find that the 2016 one, the coverage both across and within classes is really weak. And that was when I thought I could save money, and I followed advice of people on Facebook groups, and I could save money and register the trademarks myself. And I was so smug when I got my trademark registered. I felt like I'd saved money, and I was very clever.
Mm-hmm.
But then about a year later, I was getting free legal advice at the local library, and it turned out my trademarks were weak. They were flimsy, and I'd left the brand wide open, and to be honest, I had a lucky escape. So I coughed up and I paid to have them redone professionally. And that was when I learned that cheap is expensive and expensive is cheap. And it's a really good job that I learned that lesson, because shortly after that, I paid, having learned that lesson, I paid to have a product that I had designed patented. And that product went on to perform really well, and it became the market leader in its category. It was a thick bar adapter for strength training. And I hadn't quite quit my job yet, and I got home one day into my apartment.
It's like basically like a fat grip for a bar. Is that what we're talking about?
Exactly. The product
Okay.
was called, still is called, I don't own it anymore, I sold that brand, but the product was called Beast Grips.
Okay.
And it disrupted the space. The main competitor had been untouched for like 20 years. And I got home one day and there was an official looking letter on my doormat. And I opened it. And I couldn't read it because it was all in German. But I could see attached to the letter photographs of my Beast Grips in someone else's hands. And I could see attached to the letter a copy of my competitor's patent. And although I couldn't read the German, I could read the numbers, and it said 50,000 euros. And I thought, I'm in trouble. But I'd already learned by that point that cheap was expensive and expensive was cheap. So I phoned my expensive lawyer.
Yeah.
And it turned out that these guys, who weren't even German, were trying to bully me out of business. They were suing me in Germany because they knew that I was a guy on a laptop in a spare room, and they thought they could bully me out of business, and they thought that the language barrier would just add to the intimidation. And they could sue me in Germany because I was selling all over the place. That was one of the places. But it turned out that, A, I wasn't infringing on their patent, which I already knew anyway. But here's the best bit. They hadn't learned that expensive is cheap and cheap is expensive. So this enormous organization, who was Canadian, had bought the competitor from somebody just like me years before. But that guy hadn't learned the lesson. So he had his patent drawings done on the cheap. And his drawings weren't very good. And my lawyer realized that his drawings weren't really an accurate reflection of how his product or their product actually looked. And that large organization hadn't done their due diligence properly. So we went back and said, A, Ben's not infringing on your intellectual property anyway. And B, if you don't leave Ben alone, we're going to go have your patent invalidated, which will open the market up to everybody. So either you can play fair with Ben, or you can play fair with everyone. And they very quickly ran away with their tail between their legs.
Damn.
So cheap is expensive, and expensive is cheap.
That's I think, I don't know if it's like a human thing, but we want to get to the point quickly. Like we want to get to I just want this super fast. I think some of it is, if you go back like maybe 50 to 70 years ago, I don't think people were, I think they probably wanted instantaneous stuff, but I don't think they were as instantaneous when like now I can just pick up my phone and I can order food. I can order something from Amazon and it gets there super quickly. So there's like all these great things. We can record this podcast because of things like the internet, but it's also created this, fed into this desire that we have of, I need this right now, right away. And I can't settle for anything else. And that definitely can be an expensive lesson. It sounds like it's one that you learn that, the instantaneous stuff right away is not necessarily the best option. And yeah, I mean, good thing you had the lawyer on your side. Otherwise, you could have just paid these people $50,000 or 50,000 pounds, not knowing that you didn't need to.
Yeah, well, not yeah. So they wanted the 50 grand, and they wanted me to stop selling my product. So
Right.
they were trying to bully
Great,
me into having
great
a
deal.
monopoly. Yeah, and it was pretty obvious that they had clearly done this before, and this was why they had a monopoly, right?
Ah, interesting. Okay.
Um,
So you said it. There were no competitors for the past 20 years. There had been, but just no one had made it past a certain point because they were.
Pretty much. There's
Damn.
a few out there who I suspect have been through a similar experience that I did. Um, but yeah, so I won and it was incredibly satisfying. What kind of sucked was that well, sucked a lot. That so one of the places I was selling on my own website, but I was also selling on Amazon, and this is frankly ridiculous, and it still is the way it is. I don't know why they haven't addressed this, but Amazon shoots first and asks questions later. So they accused me of infringing on their intellectual property. Amazon immediately suspended my product, and
Yeah.
the only way to get my product reinstated was for them, who had accused me, to withdraw their claim, which of course they did because I was threatening to take them to court.
Yeah.
But that's how the black hatters get away with it.
Yeah.
And so for weeks, I lost sales, my rank tanked, and I tried to countersue those guys for lost sales and for my legal fees and whatnot. That wasn't successful. They just disappeared. And frankly, I didn't have the time or inclination to chase it up. I just wanted to, move on and just crush it. So I
It's
did.
probably the longest 3 weeks, 4 weeks of your life. I'm
Oh,
guessing.
it was awful. But I lived to tell the tale, and now I have a tale to tell.
And there you go. And that is where um, pain, I guess you can say, gets us. Is it gives us learning experiences and it helps mold and shape us for a couple reasons. One is I think it helps us to be better for next time, but also I believe that God can redeem anything, and so you have a bad experience like that, He can use that to you help other people to maybe get out of a jam or learn this lesson. So maybe someone hearing this is like, "Oh, I'm about to file a trademark. I'm going to pay to have someone do it instead of try and do it
Yeah.
myself." I think you could get away with some of that stuff, but like
Oh
especially when
yeah.
it comes down to something like intellectual property, like you better be pretty damn
Yeah.
sure that you've got that on
I
lock.
absolutely. I'm not against bootstrapping or trying to, especially in the beginning when you kind of you, you gotta hustle for every penny.
Yeah.
But there are certain things where I would say you need to prioritize what your budget is going towards,
Oh,
and
for sure.
intellectual
Like,
property is right up there at the top of the list for me.
if you're like, I don't know, if you're starting on a podcast, do you need the best audio interface, or would like spending money on a good microphone be probably better? You know what I mean? Like, there's definitely choices there.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Mm.
You help e-commerce business owners. Are you focusing on any one channel, or is it really looking at all, like, probably a lot of digitally native brands, I'm guessing, but are you looking at direct to consumer and Amazon and other marketplaces, or is maybe Amazon more the focus?
It's quite a broad range. I would
Okay.
say that naturally the people who come to me, um, most of them have some presence on Amazon,
Okay.
but some of them are entirely on Amazon, and I encourage those people to diversify their sales channels. But most have at least some Amazon presence, but not necessarily. I, I had a face to face meeting today with a guy who is a goldsmith, and he makes beautiful custom gold products, so watches, pens, this kind of thing, and sells them B2B for organizations who want to
Want to
perhaps
gift and
reward like a
stuff?
long time employee. So he was
Yeah.
telling me that recently a very famous airline contacted him, and he made this beautiful golden boarding pass for their CEO who was retiring. And I've been helping him with his brand identity and things like that. On the flip side, with Ecom Brokers, with my Ecom Brokers hat on for a moment, we're helping a guy sell his business right now. It's relatively small. He's doing something like 300 grand in SDE, and he sells home security products entirely on Amazon. So it's a broad range. I'm all about helping people build their brands. So for some people, that's helping them plan their exits with the Ecom Brokers hat on. For some people, they're just starting and they just want to build a business that's going to replace their income. My why is to champion entrepreneurship, because I believe that entrepreneurship has the power to do so many wonderful things. First of all, it has the power to empower us as individuals to take control of our life and do something that we want to do. But it has the power to help us create fantastic brands that genuinely make a difference to people's lives. And that might sound silly, like how can you really make such a huge difference to somebody's life? Like you're not a brain surgeon, Ben. No, but
You
let's
aren't a
say
brain surgeon? Oh, we need to
no.
end
I
this
know I have a
podcast right
man of
now.
many talents, but brain
You
surgery.
told me you were a brain surgeon when you filled out the. I'm so pissed right now.
But like I don't know. Let's say I'm helping somebody develop a brand of quality bonsai tree care products. Well, if those are quality bonsai tree care products, and your customers get joy from looking after their bonsai trees, then you're making a tangible difference to that person's well-being. And I believe that's the power of brand. And not only that, but we boost the economy, we can create employment, create
Maybe you're
opportunity.
helping a brain surgeon keep his hands steady when he's not having someone on the table while he's looking at his bonsai tree.
When he's pruning his bonsai trees, he's practicing his brain
So
surgery.
you're
That's
like a
exactly what it
brain
is.
surgeon.
I am
You're
like a
helping
brain
the brain surgeon. You're better than the
Yes,
brain surgeon.
yes. I have a new brain surgery course out. It's only 10 grand. Visit
Only 10
benleonardbrainsurgery.com.
grand, man. You can easily go hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for med school. So I would take advantage of this course now. I was actually going to say earlier that there was, I feel like I mostly made my peace with the ecom gurus out there, but I just don't really like that word. But like someone could be literally a guru and they're great, but like most, like there's definitely a very negative connotation with that term. There was a guy who was probably, I don't know, 3-4 years ago. I told you I'm really bad with time. I really think that's accurate though. 3-4 years ago. And he had videos on YouTube and he's like, I've got this whole Amazon system. And I saw it and I was like, this is total BS. Like, what's going on here? And it like made me upset. And some people were like, what are you going to do, man? Those people will come and go. I've seen him in multiple iterations, but I got so angry that I called the number and said, hey, I'm interested in this business. Talked with one of his sleazy sales reps. I'm in sales. I love sales. This guy was a sleazeball. Oh yeah, we're going to blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have you talk with this guy. Said his name. I'm going to have you talk with him and you know, you sound like you're in it to win it, whatever. So I ended up scheduling a call with him, or maybe he even patched me through like later that night. I really don't remember. But I get on the phone and I'm like, what's going on here? Because it was basically, we'll create an Amazon store for you. Like when people say that, as soon as I hear Amazon store, like it's all about mostly getting the product detail page. Having a store page can be great. When people say Amazon store, that tells me there might be a disconnect in language because it's just not their milieu. So we're going to create an Amazon store for you and it's going to generate a bunch of money and it's going to be great. And he had a great name, which also included the word Amazon. So I'm just like, okay, like that's a little weird. Amazon will definitely go after you for any trademark stuff. I've had, my agency Cartology is an authorized, part of the seller partner network, etc., and Amazon advertising partner, and they scanned our website before and said, you say selling on Amazon is complex, and that's a negative connotation towards Amazon. So you have 2 weeks to change it to something different, like it's complex selling on Amazon. For some reason, having Amazon at the end was better. I really don't know. You have 2 weeks to change it, or we'll kick you out of the network. And I don't know how like veiled of a threat that was, but I was like, okay, I guess I'll change it. So they're definitely quick on that regard. But I brought up this story because I called. I said, hey, what's going on about this? I asked a couple of like open-ended questions to get what was going on, and it turned out they were buying products from Walmart.com and drop shipping them as they listed them on Amazon.com, which for anybody out there who knows anything about Amazon, that's not allowed.
No.
You cannot do that. That is a violation of Amazon policy, and so you will more than likely get your account shut down. I mean, there are ways to get around that now, but I would not suggest doing that. Anyway, long story short, as soon as I knew what he was doing, I just said, that's a violation of Amazon's terms of service, right? Like you will get people's accounts suspended. And he was definitely caught off guard, which was I felt great in that moment. But then he fired back with, well, oh yeah, I mean, I didn't say this was for everyone. I mean, you got to take some risk, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, but you are basically putting people at risk by even starting this. I think I reported him to...
Oh, good.
I don't know if it was the SEC or the FTC.
I think I know who you're talking about. I'll ask you off air.
Yeah. We'll don't worry. We'll talk. But I reported him because I was just so upset. I'm like, this guy's ripping people off. And maybe if they make a little bit of money, the funny thing is the margins really were like 10%. So it's like you do $100,000 in sales, you only make 10,000. I'm like, is it really worth it to fork out 100,000 to get? And it's not even something that you own and whatever. So people want the quick stuff. They want something to be done for them. And that can be well and done, or all well and good. Like, I don't do my books. I pay someone else to do it. There's no reason why I need to do the books of my business. So you don't have to do everything, but it's well worth the money I spend, again, to have someone do my taxes, because that is not my specialty, and I don't want to mess that up.
No. Yeah, my philosophy in business and life is work with experts, right? And if I'm not an expert in something, I want to learn enough that I can understand if they're doing a good job. And after that point, I want it off my plate, either with someone that I brought into my team or a third-party agency or whoever it is. And the first thing I outsourced, even before customer service, was accounts. And I've been working with that accounting firm ever since. And now the director of that accounting firm, Allison, is actually my co-founder in Ecom Brokers, which just goes to show, the importance of building those relationships with smart people early on.
Ben, where can people find you if they want to know more about what you're doing? Like Goldmine, the rolling hills of Scotland? Tell people if they want to know more about what you're doing. You don't have to give them your home address or anything, but where can they find out more?
They will find me in the rolling hills of Scotland. You can come round to my house. We'll have haggis.
I've had haggis before. It is not that scary.
Oh, it's delicious.
It's like wild rice is what I liken it to.
Yeah, meaty wild rice.
Wild rice.
Yeah, I love it. But yeah, you can find me all over social. My handle is Ben Leonard Pro. I'm on LinkedIn. I've just written a book, which is called Quit Stalling and Build Your Brand. It's on Amazon. I heard you can buy good stuff there. If you want to sell your business or just talk about it, it's ecombrokers.co.uk. And my website is benleonard.pro.
We will, I'm sure, include a lot of that in the show notes as well, so that people can access you and can find out more about what you're doing and reach out. And I mean, I've started saying like the recap or the moral of the story, but I think you said it pretty well of this episode. It's cheap is expensive, expensive is cheap, right?
It's cheap is expensive, and expensive is cheap.
All right, people. Well, that's it. We don't have anything else for you, so you don't have to go home, but you got to get out of here. See you later. All right, that was the show. What did you think? That was the Longer Game. We would love for you to share the show with other people and to leave us a review of the show. So go to iTunes, go to Spotify, you can go to YouTube, comment, leave a review, and share this on any social channels that you are active on and wherever you have influence. We want to share this story and stories like it to as many people as possible. Do you have a compelling story and do you want to come on the podcast and talk about it, and you're in the retail industry? Then go to thelongergame.com, fill out a form, and we will contact you about coming on the show. You can find us on any social channels, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and you can go to our website, thelongergame.com, to actually read all of these episodes in blog form in text, because we know not everyone's going to listen. This podcast is brought to you by my agency, Cartology. We are a customized, done-for-you service agency that helps brands win on Amazon. It is super complex selling on the Amazon marketplace. We help simplify that for you. This podcast is also brought to you by Podcastify Me. They are a full-service podcast production company that designs podcasts around people who are paid for their advice. That is coaches. If you want someone to help create, strategize, and distribute your podcast to the masses, go to podcastify.me to find out more. I've so enjoyed that you've been a part of the conversation and that you've given of your time to hear these people's stories. We'd love for you to share. If you want to find out more, just go to thelongergame.com. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Stay blessed, and until next time, cheers.